Eddie Campana, who is an accomplished professional known for his extensive experience in emergency services, combined with a solid academic and athletic background. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Social Sciences and History and a minor in Religious Studies from Biola University, along with an AA in Paramedic Studies from Ventura College. In his current position, Eddie works as a firefighter, paramedic with Ventura County Fire Department at Fire Station 23 in Oakview. Prior to this, he worked for the Los Angeles County Fire Department, Ventura Fire Department, and Gold Coast Ambulance. Additionally, Edward served as an ocean lifeguard for California State Parks and engaged in sales and coaching. His athletic prowess is evident from his time as an NCAA Division I athlete in swimming at the University of Hawaii and an NAIA All-American at Biola University. In his current endeavors, Eddie is active as a member of the Tactical Emergency Medical Specialists, TEM SWAT, Ocean Rescue, Swimmer Cadre, Helicopter Cadre, and Emergency Medical Equipment Cadre. His commitment to mentoring is demonstrated through his involvement with the Fire Explorer program, and he is also a nationally licensed paramedic. Please welcome Edward Campana.
Thanks, Mr. Bunce. It's kind of weird I still call you that after these many years, huh? All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to start it off by saying I've been up since 11:30 last night, so you'll have to forgive me a little bit. I'm a little bit tired right now, but I'm going to push through. Super excited to be here today to talk to all of you guys. So like Mr. Bunce said, I work for Ventura County Fire. A lot of this is going to be me reading off of this because I can't think a whole lot right now because I'm tired. So I work with Ventura County Fire right now, paramedic in the state of California, have certifications in tactical combat casualty care, critical care transport, and then flight paramedicine. Besides the role of the firefighter paramedic, serve on the tactical emergency medical specialist or a SWAT team as basically somebody who embeds with the SWAT teams when we go in on warrant searches or active shooter incidences. Part of the ocean rescue team, and I'm just about to start a new role on the helicopter as a crew chief and flight medic. It's a pretty awesome job. I love doing it, but it's shown me quite a few things in life that I didn't think I would ever see. And as awesome as the job sounds, there's aspects to it that can be really, really hard. So what I want to start off by doing is kind of telling you a little bit about where I came from and kind of the foundation that was built for me here at Villanova, and then it kind of leads into where I'm at today. So just bear with me because, like I said, I'm a little bit tired. So let me start off by saying a fact. And it's all the teachers back there who were here when I was here, it's not that hard for them to believe, but I was not the best student when I was here. Maintaining like a B average was pretty challenging for me. I had to work really hard at it. I was more interested in my girlfriend at the time, who I haven't seen or talked to in like 10 years, so it's a worthwhile investment, I guess. And I wanted to surf all the time. I loved surfing, still love it. That was a really good investment. That's paid off. So what I didn't really realize when I was here was when I was studying for all these tests that I thought at the time, when am I ever going to use geometry or trigonometry or a bunch of other math stuff that, to be honest, I really don't use that much right now. But it taught me something. It taught me how to study. And you might think right now, going through classes, like, is this really that important to know this stuff? Some of it, yes. Some of it, maybe not as much. But what is super important is that you learn how to study. Because in life, when you graduate from here and you go off to college, you're going to find something that really sparks your interest. Maybe it's art, maybe it's, I don't know, law, whatever it may be. You'll find something that'll spark your interest. And you're like, I need to take classes in this. I need to get some sort of degree or certificate or whatever it may be. So because you know how to study, you can fully invest yourself in whatever sparks your interest. And because of that, you'll kind of thrive and you'll do really well in your classes. Then once you graduate, you have a degree, you have a certificate, whatever it is, you can go and pursue that fully to the best of your ability. So I would encourage you, as you study stuff and as you kind of go along through classes, just invest in it. Be fully prepared to give it your all, because if nothing else, it'll teach you how to study and it'll teach you how to progress through your career. In the fire service, we study things to kind of a ridiculous level. Like, everybody's seen a ladder, right? You climb up a ladder, you go on a roof, you paint the building, right? We have to know the diameter of each rung. We have to know how many serrations are on the rung. We have to know that it's T6 aluminum, aircraft grade aluminum. You have to know how much it weighs, what angle to throw it at what every single sticker on it means. You're like, well, dude, why is that important? Well, it's important because it shows the commitment to your craft, right? And it shows that you care about it, so you want to excel at it. So that would be kind of one thing. Like I said, I wasn't a very good student, but I found something I was super into, and it pushed me to do really well because I had that foundation that was built here at Villanova. Learn how to study, learn how to pursue something that you love. The second fact is, my first 3 years here, I wasn't a super happy person. I wasn't super stoked on life. I just kind of went through the motions. I was jealous of some of my friends who were at Nordhoff. I was trying to work on my swimming, and I felt kind of sorry for myself. Oh, life is really hard. I'm here in Ojai Valley, going to this beautiful private school. My life is really difficult. But I took this trip to Africa between my junior and my senior year. And when I was over there, I saw some pretty crazy things. I found out that clean water for drinking, that's not a given in certain people's lives. Having a working toilet is not a given in some people's lives. It's a gift that we're given, living in an amazing country, living in one of the best states in the entire country, and living in the best part of the best state of the best country. I mean, I still get kind of awestruck looking around here. You have all these beautiful mountains around you. You guys go to a expensive private school that your parents are paying for right now. And some of us, me in particular, had the audacity to sit there and be like, oh, my life is so hard right now. So going to Africa, it taught me that people don't have all the gifts that I have. And it gave me something called perspective. It gave me perspective on the fact that I was incredibly lucky to have parents who cared about me enough to give up a lot of their money to push me through school, which I'm sure most of your parents are doing for you right now. They're giving up something that they believe is going to be a good investment, and it will, because you guys are going to learn stuff here that's going to help propel you through the rest of your life. Besides having perspective on things, you need to have perspective when you look at stuff, right? So in firefighting, for example, when we respond to a structure fire, the first thing we do is what's called a 360. You imagine this building right here, it's on fire. The first thing we do is we step out of the engine and we go around the whole building. And the reason we do that is we want to see the fire from different perspectives. We want to see, is it burning on what we would call the alpha side, or the Bravo side, or of a Charlie, or of a Delta. What's the fire's orientation to the building? Is it spreading? Are there people inside? What's the situation? And once we have a perspective on the fire, it allows us to kind of come up with a game plan. It allows us to kind of communicate to the crews what our initial action plan is. And then it allows us to come up with incident objectives and priorities. And this is all because we want to do the safest, most efficient job that we can, saving the most lives, property, and ultimately the environment, so that we can let the people whose job it is to save people know that we're doing the best job that we can. The situation is kind of dictated by the circumstances, but you're doing the best job you can to save a life. And you can't save every life sometimes, which is a harsh reality, but you do the best you kind of can. So having perspective, knowing how to study, those are things that I learned here at Villanova. And it kind of, like I said, was the foundation for the rest of my life, going through college and whatnot. So I have perspective. Things are not that bad. It's cold out today, I know. You're like, who is this guy talking to me? But I'm just trying to tell you, at the most basic level, things you learn here are gonna help you through the rest of your life. So that's enough of me preaching to you guys about that. I'm gonna talk about my job a little bit, because it's an awesome job. It is really, really fun. And hopefully this mic keeps working. Hopefully it can spark some interest from you guys. So they call firefighting the jack of all trades, master of none. That means you have to know a lot of different disciplines, but you're not specifically invested into one. You have to be able to jump into many different things. So anything that isn't explicitly law enforcement, somebody robbing a bank or whatever, they call us. So that could be a water leak, that could be a gas leak, it could be an explosion, hazardous materials, whatever it may be. The fire department gets called to that. So, yeah, I think it's working. Is it working? Yes, cool. So some of the calls I've been on, just gonna lay them out. Plane crashes, water leaks, train derailments, wildfires, structure fires, gas explosions, large animal rescues, hazardous material calls, medical emergencies. Been on a brush fire for 4 weeks, and then I've had somebody call me at 2:30 in the morning saying they felt tired. Well, yeah, dude, it's 2:30 in the morning. I'm tired too. Yeah, it's a dynamic environment, to say the least. No two calls are the same, which is kind of exciting. You get to go to work and you're like, what's going to happen today? Nobody really knows what's going to happen today, so I guess we'll figure it out. The best part about the job, 100%, is the people. You get to work with some of your best friends. You get to spend all day with them. You have breakfast together, you have coffee together, go work out together, have lunch together. Everything we do is as a team, which is kind of cool. You think about some of the things that I've involved myself with, helicopters and whatnot, or jumping on a ladder truck. You think about who your best friends are right now. You spend all day getting paid to hang out with them, ride around on this giant truck and go do awesome stuff. It's an exciting job. And the other cool thing about it, talking about the people, is it's a really diverse workforce. You got 1,000 people in our department, approximately. And you have people who do things you wouldn't think the fire department would do. So we have an aviation unit, like the helicopters, wildland division, arson investigators, ocean rescue teams, public information officers, dispatchers, human resources, code enforcement, vegetation management, content creation, urban search and rescue, emergency medical services division, operations, information and technology, fire hazard reduction programs, ambulances, paramedic squads. It's just about everything you can think of the fire department does that is not explicitly law enforcement stuff. So with all that being said, people make the job because the job is the people who make it, is the simplest way to put it for the fire department. But all that being said, I look back on the journey and I kind of think of myself as, you know, a kid when I was here, and I didn't place an emphasis on certain things. And then after that trip to Africa, things kind of changed for me. I had a really good perspective on life. I realized that life was a gift. You're not guaranteed it every single day. Sometimes people in our job, we see people who die at young ages. You see people who are not living the best life live to 90 years old. So it can warp your sense of reality in a certain context. You have to be able to put it into perspective and say, okay, how am I going to approach this, and how am I still going to have a positive outlook on life? And taking that trip and coming to school here, that's the most important thing it taught me, is you need to have a good perspective on life. Realize the situation you're in right now, studying really hard, probably not getting a whole lot of sleep, going to classes maybe you don't exactly want to take, that's very, very temporary. It felt like yesterday I was here. I was just telling Mr. Bunce that. It feels like yesterday. And then you come back 10 years later and you're like, where's the time gone? So just realize it's all temporary, and you're gonna go on, and life is awesome. When you get out of here, you go to a school you want to, it's a different environment, you have a lot of friends, you have a lot of options. So I'm very, very excited for all you guys. You have such a cool platform to jump from at Villanova. And you may not think it, but you'll come back and you will have greatly, greatly missed this school. And you'll love seeing people again, and you'll love all the cool stuff you got to do here, all the cool stuff you get to do in life. And as long as you have a good perspective on it, life's a really awesome thing. That's all I have to say. So thank you guys very much. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much, Edward. So do we have some questions? Does anyone have a question? Here we go.
What's the strangest thing you've ever been called to?
That's funny. I was just thinking about this this morning. Somebody's gonna ask me the strangest or the worst thing I've ever seen. That's a hard question to answer. Strangest? I have a better idea. I'll tell you what my night was like last night, because last night was a really weird night. Somebody called us at 11:30 at night because they heard a car go off the side of the road of the 33. So we showed up, and there's a kid, probably your guys' age, 16, 17, on the ground, barely breathing, not responsive. So we go up, and I'm the only paramedic there, so I've got to make sure his kid's okay. Go and rub his chest, he's not responding, so we load him up in the back of the ambulance, start driving down to the hospital, we go all the way to VCMC. We think he's probably bleeding internally, so we start some IVs on him, we give him some medications, and then he wakes up and he starts spitting at us, and throwing punches and all this stuff. We're like, okay, well he's not dead, so that's good. And I'm trying to ask him where he's from, and he's like, I think he thought he was a little gangster. He told me, he's like, you know where I'm from, fool? I'm from the CO. I have no idea what you're talking about. What, Conejo? Where are you? He said, La Colonia. I'm like, oh, you are a little gangster. Okay. And then he started saying some other stuff to me. And I told him he had food in his braces, which he didn't like, but he's a little kid. So, you know, what can you do? So we dropped him off, got back to the station, to fill out all these reports, restock all the medical stuff. I put my head on my pillow, and then another call. Somebody fell down. Cool. So we go, we help her up, make sure she's okay. She was all right. Get back to the station, it's like 4 a.m. Put my head on my pillow. Another call. Sweet. Let's go get some. So we drive to this long driveway, and this lady's slouched over her couch. We're like, what's going on? Has she normally like this? No, she's normally fine. Okay. So I'm doing my assessment of her. I'm like, let's see what her blood sugar is. That's a really important key to somebody who's kind of confused. Maybe their blood sugar's low. It was low. Perfect. I can fix that. I got a bunch of medications for that. Gave her a bunch of medications. Check her blood sugar. It's fine, but she hasn't changed. She take any medications? She took a medication for pain. Sometimes that can make you feel dizzy and confused. Perfect. I have a solution for that too. Try and fix that. Nothing changes. You're like, okay, what's going on? You start doing your assessment, and then you start going down like the bad roads. Like, oh, maybe they're having a stroke or a heart attack or something. You start ruling stuff out. And we basically had decided that she was having a large bleed in her brain. Down to the hospital. I was telling the nurse we should go to this hospital because it's for strokes. She's like, no, I think I know better than you, sitting in this well-lit room, AC. So we went to another hospital, and yeah, she had a massive brain bleed. And then got back to a station and made some coffee, and now I'm here. So that's like a pretty typical day. Yeah.
Other questions? Mr. Bunce, do you have any questions for Edwin?
You already mentioned learning to study and gaining perspective, but what other specific things that you learned here at Villanova have you kind of carried with you, or what sticks with you the most, or that you keep being reminded of?
Well, I'm pretty consistently reminded of one thing, and that was when I was here. I had a coach called Jermaine Britton. He was a swim coach, and Jermaine taught me a lot about the kind of teamwork aspect of sports. I swam when I was here, and swimming is an individual sport, but in a greater sense, it's not. It's a team sport. You have relays, you have the team that you're with, and it taught me a little bit about leadership because he made me a captain, and I didn't really know what that meant or what that entailed, but you're kind of in charge of the team, and Jermaine delegated a lot of things to me. He said, all right, the team is kind of yours, so you have the responsibility of getting people to practice, getting people to show up, getting people to perform. And when you're trying to lead people, there's different styles. You can be authoritarian, you can be passive, whatever you want to do. But what I kind of learned when I was here from a lot of the teachers, a lot of the administration, but especially Jermaine, was you lead by example, right? So if you want your team to perform, if you want your team to show up, if you want everybody to perform well, you have to lead in the front. You have to show up to practice. You have to go above and beyond practice, going on your own time to make yourself better. And then you have to kind of cajole people into showing up for their races by showing up for your race. When it's time to perform, you have to perform. So it taught me both leadership and teamwork, which doesn't seem like a big thing, but when you're looking at yourself and you're like, I'm a senior, I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna study, let's say, communications or something, right? You study, you get your degree, you start working, and your boss comes up to you and they say, hey, I need this done. Plenty good, I'll go do it. You kind of know what you're doing, you kind of don't, you're new, you're just out of college. You turn in the project and they're like, this is terrible, this is awful, this will not do. You're like, okay, cool, and you go do same thing, you're like, I guess I'll make it better. Turn it, this is also terrible. I'm like, okay, dude, you're not really telling me what you want from me, you're not really being a leader. And you think to yourself, I could do what that guy does. I could do it way better. I wouldn't just tell somebody this is terrible. I'd say, hey, next time you do this, would you mind maybe fixing this and fixing this? Sweet, thank you. You know? And you start to gain these things as you get older. It doesn't seem important right now, but it really is, because in the workforce and when you're out of this little bubble you're in right now, having a good work ethic, having good teamwork, and having good leadership, those are the kinds of qualities people want when they hire you. That, you know, we read off a list of things for me, Thames Cadre and helicopter and ocean. Every single one of those jobs I had to interview for. And it always comes up. How do you work well with others? I sometimes use my experience from here. So, I was captain of my swim team and this and that. And it shows them like, okay, this person can work with other people. This person can help other people by showing that they know what the job is and progressing the team forward. When you get out there in the real world, people want to look at you and say, hey, can you do this project? And you say, yeah, I got it. And then they turn around, they walk away and be like, oh, he said he could do it. I know he's going to do a good job. And it doesn't sound like much, but everybody has those people they can turn to in the workforce and be like, okay, I told Mr. Bunce I want this thing done. I know he's going to do a good job. You turn around, you walk away, you don't have a second thought about it. That is the best feeling as like a supervisor, giving somebody a task and knowing it'll get done. So all that said, a lot of that I learned here, sitting right where you guys are sitting. So,
That's a great answer, thank you.
yeah.
So do we have any other questions? Here, we have one here.
What events did you swim in college?
What events this one? I did the 50 free, the 100 free, the 100 back, and the 200 back. And then some of the relays. See some hands up back there.
Another hand?
Was there like a point in where something like really traumatic happened that made you like question your job or like regret it in any way?
That's a really, really good question. Thank you. Yes, there's been some calls, and it's kind of funny you ask the question like, what's the strangest thing you think? Most people ask, what's the gnarliest thing you've ever seen? And what's crazy is I told somebody the gnarliest thing I'd ever seen once because I'd never been asked that question. And he said he had to go get counseling from what I told him. I was like, dude, you weren't even there, dude. Like, how do you think I feel? Yeah, like sometimes there's some terrible, terrible people out there in the world. And there's some terrible things that happen. But what the perspective I'll always try to keep is from the second they call me, my only job is to make it better. I'm not going to make it worse. I'm only going to try and help out. And sometimes it's frustrating, but you can't help out as much as you wish you could. And that can get taxing on your mentality, and that can get taxing on your person. But as long as you do your best to make the situation better, like you can sleep well at night knowing that. And you know, that's a perspective you can carry through any job. If you show up for your job as a newscaster, you're like, cool, people don't know the weather, I'm gonna tell them the weather. I'm gonna do the best job I can do at it. Because some people, the weather's super important to them. For me, it's super important. If it's hot outside, low humidity, a lot of wind, I'm probably gonna get some ripping brush fire today. So to me, it's super important. If that weather person had the perspective of like, nobody really cares about the weather. It's like, yeah, it's the weather outside is weather later, and they leave, then I'm kind of screwed. I have to know what's going on. So you have to take pride in whatever your job is. That way other people can benefit from your hard work. Same thing for you. When you go out there and you do a job, you have to give it the best possible performance you could possibly give, because somebody's counting on you somewhere. The world doesn't just spin. People push it. That's how things go in the world. You know?
Thank you. Other question?
Yeah, I get cut off for a second.
Sorry. I have a question about how you develop good habits, because the way you talked about how you were in your teens, you seem like you were, I don't know, pretty undisciplined.
Yeah.
But now you have like a job that requires you to be super disciplined and focused like all the time, no matter what. And I just want to know, like, did you struggle to develop good habits for those jobs, or did it just happen immediately because it's just habits that you had to develop because you really wanted the job?
That's That's a really, really good question. You guys have some awesome questions. If I was sitting in your seat, my question would have been like, do you like fighting fires? Okay. I'm also gonna move around because it's freezing outside, and I definitely underestimate how cold it is. So there's a few ways you can develop good habits. The way that I basically learn is through what's called an authoritarian approach. And that's because I was standing there in the fire academy like this, or I was standing in paramedic school, and people drilled into me, into my very being, that you have to be excellent. You have to be perfect, right? And so that's what's called the authoritarian approach. It's not fun. It really, really is hard sometimes. But there's different ways you can learn, and there's also passive ways you can learn. So one thing I learned in college was basically managing my time. My second to last semester, I was taking 30 units, which is equivalent to about a year's worth of work. And I did that because I wanted to graduate and I wanted to get out of college. I wanted to jump back into the world. So I learned how to manage my time, and I would wake up at 4 a.m., I'd go swim for 2 hours, and then from basically as soon as I was done swimming until about 11 o'clock at night, I was going to classes or I was trying to make some money working. So if you can manage your time, your life is so much easier. It's so much easier. So that was basically a passive form of learning how to manage my time. There's the authoritarian approach, there's a passive approach, and then there's basically what I call learned disciplines. You see somebody who you like and who you respect, and you're seeing what they're doing, you're like, huh, that person's got it figured out. Hey, how do you go about doing this? How do you go about doing that? And they tell you, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. I guess I'm going to do that. So it's another somewhat passive form, but you learn it from other people. So my discipline was basically learned from those three ways. And you know, not everybody's going to be a firefighter. I totally get that. It's a very militaristic sort of workforce. There's a lot of yelling, there's a lot of screaming, there's a lot of shouting when you're going through the academy. But in the workforce and in life in general, the different ways you pick things up, it changes your life forever, and it shapes you into the kind of person you eventually become. So, thank you for that question. That was an awesome question.
Hi. How did you know that you wanted to swim in college?
Because I swam in high school.
But like, did you always just know, or like?
No, that's a good question. No, I actually, my freshman year, I wasn't very good, and there was a kid here named Taylor Wolf, and he's like, I do club swimming, and it made me a lot better. I was like, oh, well, I kind of suck. I guess I'll follow him. That's kind of what we were talking about, these passive disciplines or learned disciplines. I followed him to club swimming, and it made me so much better. And then my junior year, I took a huge step, and they're like, you could swim in college if you wanted to. I was like, huh, wonder what that entails. So started doing some research, and then I started having coaches contact me saying, hey, you should come swim for us. And then they offered me money, and I was like, oh, this is sweet. Get paid to look at the line and swim up and down a pool. That's awesome. And so I went and took a trip to Hawaii, and I was walking out in Waikiki at a place they call Walls. It's like the one big pier they have in Waikiki, and the coach was like, when else do you get the opportunity to live in Hawaii and swim? I was like, it's a hard argument to beat. I guess I'll do that. And then that's how it ended up. So it's the short version of it.
That sounds pretty awesome.
It was pretty sweet.
I think we have time for one more question. Is there any other question? One more, okay. In the meantime, I want to say happy birthday. I understand that you turned 30 yesterday.
Yeah, I did. I turned 30 and
Yay!
was instantly slammed into multiple calls.
What's the gnarliest thing you've ever seen?
The gnarliest thing I've ever seen. I won't tell you the gnarliest thing I've ever seen. trying to think. All these calls are running through my head. Thanks, I'm having to relive them now. You know, I'll tell you a story. It is kind of a gnarly story, but it puts things into perspective. My second day of paramedic school, I learned everything I think I wanted to know, and I'm in the back of the ambulance. My preceptor, the guy who was teaching me, was super mean, like one of the meanest guys I've ever met in my life. And I was sitting there basically wondering, like, am I gonna pass or am I gonna fail? Am I gonna just waste a year of my life? He's like, hey, we have a full arrest, which is a cardiac arrest. I was like, oh, this is it. Day 2, this is it. Let's go. He's like, it's a 2-year-old. I was like, oh, okay. And I remember it clear as day. I walked in through the house, through the back, and we walked into the pool, and the guys are doing CPR, and we threw the kid on the gurney, and we started going out and closed the doors to the ambulance. We were off to VCMC. And I'm trying to like figure out what I'm looking at, because it's not normal to see stuff like that. It's not a normal thing to see. So I'm trying to process that information. I'm trying to do my job. I'm trying to show I'm competent and like know what I'm doing. And then I start trying to delegate to people what's going on. And then I got in this weird like kind of phase of saying, okay, I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And people are listening to me, like these huge jacked firefighters are like, oh, you got it. They start doing the stuff I'm telling them to do. I'm like, huh, okay. And we're going through, and I remember looking out the window in the back, and I see this car screaming behind us. And I'm like, what's going on? And my preceptor was like, yeah, it's her mom, dude. Like, oh yeah, where am I? You're back into it. I remember we brought the kid into VCMC, and there must have been 100 people in the hallways. Hallways like basically as big as these 2 chairs, like the width of the hallway. And all these doctors, I remember the lead trauma surgeon looked at me and just gave me the look like, dude, I am sorry. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Kind of freaking out. We handed the kid off, and the kid ended up living, which was awesome. But I didn't know that at the time. We walked back outside, and I remember the EMT, there's something on the ground, and he just kicked it like as far as he could. And he starts crying. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I kind of don't really feel anything right now. Like I don't really know what I saw. And the preceptor came up to me, and it's the first time he was nice. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I be okay? And he's had to explain to me what I just saw, because I couldn't comprehend that because I'd never seen it in my life. So that's one of the harsh realities of the job, is you see stuff like that, which sucks. But like I said earlier, from the moment I showed up to the moment I left, the only thing I was trying to do is save that life. And it's an awesome feeling when you do save a life. Like that kid's running around today. Like we followed up and totally normal. Found her, she was dead. Now she's walking around alive. That makes it all worth it. So that's a gnarly story, but it had a happy ending, which is cool. But that's about all I got.
Well, thank you, Edward. It was wonderful hearing from you.
Thank you.